It's Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing?
Pastor Paul, God bless you, doing well tonight.
God bless. God bless. I know you're a very busy man with everything that's taking place around the world. I think the president's speech last night gave a lot of people hope that the conflict could at least damper down. It won't end. I think you said it last week. This is a 20-year confrontation. But
Yeah.
what does he mean by the next 2 to 3 weeks? Maybe give him the month of April. What is
He's,
this trying to accomplish here?
well, he seemed to have communicated he will do what he has to do within that time gap to achieve what he needs to achieve and move on to other things. Of course, that's a plan. That's a plan. The war is conflict, by the way, is very indeterminate. It's very difficult to tell what the outcome is going to be. I know that there was an intel report that came in yesterday that raised some concerns, and it was confirmed a few times in the early AM hours that Iran still has a great percentage of its missile drone capabilities.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very difficult to get some of those fortified underground storage areas. That's almost impossible to do without some thorough campaign.
Right.
And I don't think he wants that. He didn't want the people to think that we're entering into some type of Vietnam or something like that. But the truth is, this will be one of those lingering processes. Now, it may not carry the name of conflict with the U.S. directly. Other nations will be involved, right? To the extent or expanse of it, I think it's important that biblical references always be in view, because Iran, of course, will be engaged in one of the end battles, the last battles. So we know they're going to be around. But as far as other things are concerned, the way the world is going, we face plenty of challenges, and it's just one of those things. People have to really pay attention to their environment, to what's happening, and live their life accordingly. I personally would not. I know he's trying to calm the people, and which is a good thing because he gave them his plan. The outcome, of course, is unknown. We can try that, but the outcome is unknown. All right, that's going to be in the Lord's hands. Period.
So, Mike, as we're looking at these things that are, and I agree with you that yes, he wants to be able to say we're out of there, but obviously there's going to be some lingering, maybe some special ops, some Mossad is going to be involved, CIA. There's going to be some other nations that are going to be involved. And, of course, the Straits of Hormuz. I mean, he clearly is saying to the Europeans, you're going to have to fix this problem. And I kind of like that because that puts them on the realization that it can't always be on the backs of the Americans. And I think he's forcing them to grow up a little bit. And it won't be easy for France and England and Germany and these nations to actually pry it free. And we'll probably help them if we have to. Would you agree?
Well, I think that Europe is going to be totally engulfed. It's not going to look good for those nations. They're going to be the target of quite a few malicious attempts. And one of the parts I'm waiting for a signal, because I know it at very soon. Chemical weapons, it's only a matter of time before chemical weapons are going to be used.
Uh-oh.
That's a simple realization. I also know that security in Europe is compromised and has been for the last month and a half. The UK, likewise, is not taking proactive steps to ensure they don't have any compromises with their nuclear facilities. That's another big issue that I'm looking at, right? So there's some problems. And Iran will not forgive what happened. Then everybody should understand that. But Iran is not alone. This deal with Iran, this conflict, has raised awareness with all of our enemies. All of our enemies.
Wow.
Telling you now, they see a gap, a weakness, some way to get in to get at the USA. If they could, they would take us out right now.
Yeah.
If they could. So this is the environment that we've never been in this type of environment. We've not been. And if that were to happen, we're not going to get support from NATO if they were to take the USA out, because NATO feels marginalized, right? So I think that everybody should understand that position also. It's going to become painfully aware in the times to come. We will see a manifestation of a type of, well, I guess you could say betrayal in that respect. But things may get a bit tenuous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we may see, and to that point, we may see the European nations cut deals with China and Russia and the Middle Eastern nations. So instead of having to pry the Straits of Hormuz loose, they cut deals that allow them to flow in and out. They just pay higher royalties or higher taxes, and that they start to build some kind of a working relationship, especially with the Chinese and the Iranians. And if that happens, then all of a sudden our friends become our enemies in a way, not necessarily hostile toward us, but not there in case we come under major confrontation. So the point you're saying is the world is drawing a line. They're choosing sides. Would you agree, Mike?
Oh, yeah, they have been. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's just beginning. Just beginning. My goodness.
Oh, boy.
It's going to get, it'll become intense. As the summer heat comes around also, we're going to see a change in attitudes. And, well, we'll begin to see the true nature of things as heat comes into play.
Oh, boy. Mike, also, I'm going to switch gears for just a moment. We had a congressman, former Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida, who said that a uniformed officer came to his office when he was still a congressman, and that he told him, gave him an unclassified setting, he said, that there were captured aliens by the United States and that there is a hybrid breeding program, aliens breeding with women. He said the women were captured from war zones and from migrant caravans, and that there's 6 to 12 facilities where this hybrid breeding program is taking place. He said that when this meeting took place with this uniformed military intelligence officer, that he also had several of his staff in the meeting as witnesses. And then, before I could digest that, Tim Burchett, another congressman, this one out of Tennessee, said that he was shown 2 weeks ago that here's what he said: what I saw would keep you up at night, the things that I have seen. Tim Burchett said, if they get released, the things that I was shown, it's keeping me up at night, and the things that I've seen, if released, would cause you to not be able to sleep. I've been briefed by just about every alphabet agency there is. And I'll just tell you this: if they would release the things that I've seen, you would stay up at night. You'd be up all night worrying about these things and thinking about this stuff. According to Tim Burchett, he told Newsmax on television this. He said, I am sick of it. It's time to disclose this stuff. that I was briefed on, what I have seen will keep you up all night. Like, these are two congressmen, a former congressman now who's telling us what meeting he had, and a current congressman who said 2 weeks ago, seeing things that would keep you up at night. Let's address the alien hybrid program that Matt Gaetz is trying to say.
Yeah, well, he's not the only one. Unfortunately, with Matt Gaetz, they tried to destroy his credibility, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Before he ever came out with this fully. But a hybrid program, yes. Yeah, it's been going on for some time.
Wait a minute. Yes. Now, I know in the Bible, the fallen angels chose women. They took them, they impregnated them, and we had Nephilim born. We had this.
Yeah.
You're saying, yes, there is an alien hybrid program going on and has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, let me that word alien.
Okay.
Especially among Christians, it's a very simple narrative. It should be for Christians. God created angels. Some of those angels rebelled. Well, a great number of them rebelled with Lucifer. I would say those are some of the manifestations and things that people see all throughout the universe, known universe. That's what I would say. That there are different types of angels, different forms, right? They have different abilities, capabilities, much like many different types of human races, right? You have Asian, Black, Caucasian, so on and so forth. Many different types of alien or angel types out there. That word angel, right, implies what they do, messengers, right? So, but there are different types. And there's no way for a person to know all the different types of angels God created. I'm going to call them angels. So in that respect, that means our existence is full of life forms of God's creation, right? Our story right here on earth, yes, we have, from time to time, we have seen those entities, angels and good and bad, interact with humanity, right? We ourselves, humanity, we have to take a look sometimes at what we are, right? God created us, these bodies, from this earth, but he clearly said we're in this world, but not of this world.
Amen.
Right? So just to qualify that, because sometimes when using that word alien, Christians they will make a distinction between an alien and an angel or other life form. But in the Bible, we reference those life forms as angels, right? Now, the bad angels who had children, who mated with women in some way, they corrupted not only humanity, but animals. And giants were in the earth.
Yes.
My personal belief is there's evidence of those giants everywhere, right? I think that's one of the reasons they indoctrinate children to make dinosaurs seem like little friends, right? The Bible clearly teaches us that the fallen angels corrupted humanity and they corrupted animals.
Yes.
Right? And God destroyed the earth to destroy most of that life, but it clearly states there were Nephilim before the flood and also after that. So some of the hybrids existed after that. In the book of Enoch, it states that when one of these hybrids dies, their spirits do not go to hell. They don't go to heaven. They remain in the earth, and they are to be known as evil spirits. That was spoken back then. So what we've been dealing with here are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, which are the children of the angels / human, offspring.
Yes.
These demonic entities, devils and Satan, so on and so forth, they have a very specific characteristic. It's outlined. They want to do war. They want to kill things, destroy things, cause all sorts of chaos and this, that, and the other, which is exactly what they do. They're very cunning in a lot of cases. In fact, historical people with some of these characters like Hercules, so on and so forth, those same characteristics are in some of these spiritually oppressed people of today. So we deal with that. Now, these fallen angels, the 200 that fell on Mount Hermon, those were 200, the chiefs of 10, were bound in the earth. And they're not going to be released. We're not dealing with those. But 1/3 of the angels followed Lucifer, of an unconscionable number. So we don't know how big that number is. But we know they're here on this earth and all over the place. So the daddies, I believe that those daddies, right, the parents, we've not really dealt with the parents. We're guarded from the parents. But in the end times, the parents will begin to interact with humanity, right? Now, has man dealt with some of these parents? Yes, they have. Yes, they have. They dealt with them in Washington. Has Washington or other capitals had angelic encounters? Yes, they have, Pastor Paul. They've been warned.
Yeah.
There was a prayer service in Washington. Twice this happened, and 3 angels appeared to those leaders and distinctly told them, do not follow greedy desires. In essence, that's what they said. But they didn't listen, right? So I think some of those stories have been distorted. I do. I think they've been distorted. I think that
when you say 3 angels came and visited leaders of our nation in Washington, D.C., is there a specific time frame you can give us on when that happened?
Well, there is. I'll give you the incident. There was a time when lights were seen over Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Right? That was the second time.
Okay.
That was the second time. So, but they were warned. They were warned not to trust what will follow them, not to act on greedy desires. Remember their fellow man. They were warned of quite a few things. They did not listen. They didn't listen because what they did was they compartmentalized the outcome of those meetings. Of course, again, the story was distorted over time. So what did man do? Other leaders came in. Greedy, not so good people came in. They desired greater technology. Of course, we were being involved in a Cold War. So they wanted greater technology. Why? Because Russia had the same visit. Okay. And then right after that, everybody was visited by, they called the first 3 angels called them deceivers were coming. They told them deceivers were coming.
Okay.
Right. So when they did come, it was almost like nobody listened. Right. You have to have strong conviction to hear an angel, to listen to that message, and they did not listen. So the deceivers came promising technology. The USA had something akin to a Roswell about 3 times. Russia had something akin to a Roswell about 6 times. Germany, the same thing. All these nations had these encounters, crashes. Now, I believe, my personal belief is this. Some angelic being, whether they're fallen or not, we're not going to crash any spacecraft. No, that's the way they seed desires within mankind. These things are inherently devilish, okay? And even in Washington, the people that do understand and they know things, they know they're inherent liars. The one thing they will tell everybody is you cannot trust them. You cannot trust them, right? They speak one thing and say another. They speak incoherently a lot of times. They promise things that never come, and things that do come, they never promised. So they cannot trust them, which some people said they went to extremes and said, well, we need to communicate with these things. But nobody could. They had different projects where they tried. Of course, all these projects have cover stories. But Project Looking Glass was one of the most revealing. They had lots of projects. They found technology like jump rooms. You remember Stargates?
Right? Like Stargates.
Yeah, but they're called, if you hear somebody reference
jump rooms, yes.
Reference it as a jump room, and then they probably know what they're talking about. You have folks who have been, time does not exist in the spiritual realm, or you may call it that dimension. So, Pastor Paul, they have seen people sit at a meeting who are in opposition to some of these things, and that person would age 20 to 30 to 40 years right in front of everybody within seconds. and the person will come back to themselves. Imagine a person sitting at a table in opposition to a meeting, a high-level meeting. The person essentially crosses their arms, but the person has no covering. Then that person freezes, goes into a daze, and all of a sudden in that daze, their eyes, you see cataracts form over their eyes, their hair turns white, their skin is all wrinkled. And when they come to themselves, in about 15 seconds, they're screaming. Because they've been tormented for all that time. Think about that. Nothing happened to them physically, but something took them and tormented them for 25, 35 years. Think about that. Now, nothing actually happened to them, but in their minds, they just spent 40, 50 years being tormented, 25, 50, 40 years being tormented. That person they're never going to repair from that, right? That scares people to pieces. Now, when you're dealing with a being that has that type of power, what do? You're going to submit. Now, they had no covering. These people had no covering. So naturally, the only course of action they have is to submit, to be obedient to that greater power, which caused a lot of evil things to happen over time. Now we're in our present time, right? Those evil things that happen included turning your face when they would do things with human beings, having hybrid programs put on the East Coast and the West Coast, right? Where essentially scientists mess with DNA to see what they can mix up together, what survives and what does not. Can the disembodied Nephilim survive inside what type vessel? Can it be 100% human? Does it have to be 100% human plus insect? Do you have to throw in some other DNA, right? What's the compatibility formula here? This is what these guys have been doing, and we get to the present day. Many people have found out that you can have a covering with Christ, right? That by Christ, you have a covering, which means these things have no power over you. Right? This is what they find out for real. So a lot of Christians, my faith, they believe this. I'm telling you that there's some people out there, they know this for real. They know that their relationship with Christ is the only reason they're alive.
Amen. Amen.
And they have to protect their families. These things have an ability to manifest in what a person would understand as a monster or what a person would understand as a beautiful person. They can't trust the people around them. They can't do that. So a lot of these people in the know are very cut off. These public people in the know, I kind of take issue with that, because if a person is in the know, they're certainly not going to be in the limelight. Okay. They're going to be very serious about their beliefs, about what they're doing. Because they understand what's at stake. They understand the torments that can happen to a person. They understand the covering of Christ. They understand witchcraft and all that stuff. They have to live in that world. To a person who knows nothing about it, they're believing in Christ. They're going out, living their lives. They're happy. They know nothing about that. If they were to know about this other side, their life they would lose all their innocence. There's no way a person can continue to be who they are with that type of knowledge. Okay.
It's pretty difficult. This is a great explanation that you've just given about the biblical ramifications of the fallen angels and the breeding process that they did with humanity in Genesis chapter 6. It does say it was before the flood. It does say it happens again after the flood. And even Jesus says it will be as it was in the days of Noah and the days of the flood. It will be that way again. So we shouldn't be shocked, I guess, by this information coming out by these congressmen that this process is in play. And it's just shocking, but it shouldn't be. It is in the Bible. So Mike, I'm going to ask you, while we're talking about this, CERN has come into the equation. Yesterday, I always go and check on different things. I said, I'm going to go check on what's going on at CERN. And they had just created antimatter. They had already done this, as you know, by the crashing of protons at the speed of light in the in the Hadron Collider. But they finally figured out a way to capture it in a cryogenic trap. And they can take it and they put it in a truck and they can move it to a different labs now in Geneva. They've moved them. And I think they're even going to send some of it to France, maybe some of it to Germany for analyzation. Antimatter. What they did discover also is that when antimatter comes in contact with matter, it's overtaken by the matter. It's so similar to this. When light comes in contact with darkness, the light overtakes it.
That's right.
So can you tell us where they're okay? And then there's two things. That question, or that why are they doing this? That's my first question. And my second question is they also have created, this came out today, a semiconductors called time picks.
Yep.
There's 6 of them.
Mini picks, time picks, mini picks.
Time picks, yep. And they put them on Artemis 2 rocket ship to send to the moon to analyze, they say, radiation. But I'm hearing that it may also be to do with measuring time and space. As time slows down, the further you go, how does that react to the molecules of the body? I don't know. Can you, that's the two questions. We have the time picks and we have the dark matter being transported.
And the big one is the time picks chip is actually, it's, I believe, probably you cited something from Gen 4, which came from a device called mini picks, right? Okay. Which is it's a chip that essentially reads out particulates within a pixel-sized, I'm going to call it a frame, right? And a bunch of these frames are put in a chip, so it can actually extract the properties of radiation in real time. That means to extract the properties of radiation in real time means it's identified, and all of its the electron count, right, the decay count, all these things are seen or picked up, detected by this device. That's where the real-time part comes in. This is actually part of a program because they use that same chip in X-ray machines, in CT scans, and so on and so forth. Okay. And CERN is instrumental in developing these chips. What they're doing with this on the spacecraft, it's not new to spacecraft. I believe this started somewhere back in 2017 with the second generation time picks, or mini picks they were back then. When they measure radiation, is not quite what people believe it to be. Radiation is everywhere, right? I mean, it's everywhere. Also, if you cannot detect certain types of radiation, you're essentially blind to about 98% of this world and to existence. And this is one of the real tests for this project, because Paspal, they have every university they can find. The kids in these colleges, they have the time picks chip. JPL has it, NASA has it, European Space Agency, but most importantly, these universities have it. To measure particulates, radiation, to come up with new devices where they can actually in real time track things that cannot be seen, right? Like tracking dark matter. In the world, in an anti-world where antimatter and antiprotons and antineutrons, where they do exist, something else also exists. Imagine looking through a device and you see another world. Now imagine that. Now, if you sat right in your chair and looked through certain devices and saw another world, and in that world you saw things moving and operating and walking and doing other things, you would, that'd be very difficult for you to process, right? To interact with that world, you have to have certain methods to extract anything from that world, right? So you have to be able to see on different spectrums, and as it turns out, radiation is one of those. It's a particulate that's
really
many different spectrums.
Okay, so you're saying so dimensions. We're talking, and we've always said that CERN was involved in trying to pierce the veil or to open up some type of portal or some type of ability to go into other dimensions. You're saying that am I right by you saying that radiation, particulates, are part of what's necessary to go into another dimension?
Well, you have radiation in this dimension.
Yeah.
Right? You have radiation in the other dimensions, or let's just say the spirit realm. Think of the only particulates that exist in both realms that you actually have an ability to track. So if you can see radiation in the spirit realm, right, then you can track things in the spirit realm, right? So they already have optics that can do this, but they have no tracking capabilities.
Wow.
Why? Because CERN has unleashed brand new properties to radiation on a whole different level that nobody ever knew about. So now they're going to be able to do some things. Pastor, they have everybody working on this. To take these devices in space, yes, they can detect radiation. They can see what cumulative radiation, how that affects the body, this, that, and the other, what types of radiation they're actually dealing with, fine-tune all that. But they're going to perfect that chip. And in space, you don't have the impedance of radio signals and other types of radiation that are released from Earth's surface. You have a pure sample of radiation when you're in space. So when they come back, they're going to download the data from those chips. I'm telling you, they're going to perfect how to track things in another dimension. If they do this, they're going to have an alternate energy source. But most importantly, they're going to have an upper hand. One of the major problems, this goes back to the Nephilim, right? With these other life forms, whether it be paranormal, whatever a person calls it, we have no defense against it, right?
No, we don't.
There's no natural defense against it.
No.
Except they found out some things, right? In high radioactive environments, these things want nothing to do with that. Nothing.
Really?
They also want nothing to do with certain types of radiation they've extracted at CERN because they're trying to match the properties, right? So you're talking about something that, because CERN is not really helping out in any field that people know of. But what if we had a defense against the very thing they're keeping classified?
Against the aliens, the fallen angels?
Now wouldn't they expend everything they could on a defense from that stuff if it's real?
You know, it's amazing to me that you're bringing this up, because when I today got up and was saying, Lord, what do you want me to talk about tonight? There's the war, there's all this going on. He said, you need to look into CERN. And I did yesterday look into CERN. So I looked again. And then he said, you need to look at the aliens again. I'm like, okay. And then Matt Gaetz, I find the Matt Gaetz story. And then I begin to think, why does the Lord want me to talk about alien hybrids and CERN in the same breath? It doesn't even, to me, it's two different entities, two different issues. But you're saying, no, they're actually coming together. There's technology that they're trying to discover from CERN to use to monitor the spiritual realm, to monitor the alien fallen angel dimension, or to even be a weapon against it in a physical form. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. If you can track it, and if you can find properties that repel something like that, right, you have a defense against it. You know, and one thing they know, there's a set of biblical scriptures. Throughout my career, I've heard people talk about this all the time. They're very concerned about the end of Revelation, when all the people of the earth go against the living God, right? I want you to think about something. This is after the 1,000-year reign.
Yep.
But during the 1,000-year reign, those who were faithful to Christ, those who were beheaded, right, for their faith, they rule and reign with Christ, where they're not ruling and reigning in human bodies. There's you ruling and reigning in glorified bodies.
You're right.
But you have regular human beings on earth at the same time, too.
You're right.
Right?
1,000 years.
That's right. So we're going to have a world where there is no division between the supernatural and the natural. But right after that 1,000-year reign, the world will attempt to attack the living God.
That's true.
We don't have weapons right now that can attack any spiritual entity, but we will at that time.
So
And
in
they're
other
working that
words,
out now.
because folks, the Battle of Armageddon comes after the 1,000-year reign. This is when Lucifer tries to defeat God. It's the final battle.
I believe that's the end of a long durational war. And in fact, I believe that the 1,000-year reign is God's mercy. I do. I believe it's God's mercy. I only say that because you have a lot of people that say, well, if I had seen a miracle with my own eyes, I wouldn't have, gone this route. Or if I could just see an angel, I would have believed more, right? So you're going to have people living in a time where they see angels, where they see Christ, where they see miracles on a continuous basis, where they see the true Feast of Tabernacles, so on and so forth. And then when Satan is loosed out of his prison, he so easily deceives them again, right? And they go and attack the living God, New Jerusalem. And at the in the end of Scripture, it says that will be the ending of the Gog Magog, as the fulfillment of Gog Magog, when God takes them all out himself.
That's right.
So it starts long before the 1,000-year reign, but it ends right after in the final judgment.
Right. You're exactly right. And most people can't compute that. But the Gog and Magog war starts the great battle. Then it concludes in Armageddon after the 1,000-year reign. Yep. And so are we, Mike, would you say now we are moving into the beginning or close to, or the setup anyway, of the Battle of Gog and Magog? I mean, we're getting in that area, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. Well, during that battle, you have to have people with, they have to be knowledgeable in spiritualism, right? Half this world has knowledge. They know about spirits. They know about paranormal things. They have to be in a certain mindset to be against the living God in a supernatural form. And the whole world right now has been educated with these paranormal shows. Most of the world believes in spirits, and most of the world, they know about the alien topic. All these things are coming together. For some people, it'll be quite deceiving. Nevertheless, they will believe in it. For others, it's going to verify this oncoming age that is going to be challenging at best, most. But yes, I believe that.
It's Gog and Magog. I mean, so in other words, Armageddon and Gog and Magog is a continuation. Gog and Magog being the continuation of an Armageddon type war.
Yeah.
Finally gets finalized after the 1,000-year reigns. Well, now you made another point. You said, but we don't really have the weapons yet for that war. Now people need to don't misunderstand, folks. We have weapons in the spirit. Put on the whole armor of God. We have spiritual warfare weapons in the spirit world that we live in. But Mike's talking about a time after
unbelievers
millennial reign. We're in a total different. We're in a world where people are walking around living in spiritual bodies, glorified bodies of Christ, and they're going to need some spiritual type or other dimensional type weapons. Is that what they're trying to discover?
That's it. And so this time picks, like the time picks 3, because I tinkered around with that one. The time picks 3 it's a pretty extraordinary little device. But essentially what it does is it analyzes all types of radiation coming through, all types of particulates. And one of the most interesting parts about that chip is that it will output the properties of any specific particulate that comes through there, right? So it has I believe it has a 14-bit register, which just outputs a lot of information at 40 megahertz. This thing is pretty good. So, and what you were talking about is the Timepix 4. The Timepix 4th generation is what's on that ship. So you're looking at something that can actually analyze each radioactive particulate. That's extraordinary to say. You're talking about, that's like having a trillion Geiger counters on your fingertip. How about that?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that way you can analyze each particulate. Now, they're just not looking at surface properties. They're also looking at anti-properties, right? They're looking for particulates they have identified at CERN.
Wow.
And if you find certain particles, you have an address of where it came from. And if you have that address, you can recreate the destination. And if you recreate that destination by way of imagery, then you have a reflection of where something came from. So you can essentially know if something is looking at you or shot something at you or is attempting to touch you, whatever the case is. You're looking at something that removes the veil, Pastor Paul, where it removes the veil. Can you imagine how powerful that would be for a human being to be able to see into a whole nother dimension or the spirit realm? You're looking at, and if evil people, quote unquote, have their hands on this, you're looking at something on a different scale, right? You're looking at evil on a different level altogether because they would be able to anticipate what's happening in the spirit realm without actually having, that close, intimate relationship with Christ. And they have the absence of the Holy Ghost, which is why they worship all these other entities.
Amazing, amazing. Mike, let me go to shift gears for a minute because this is great information you're giving us. People have been concerned about food rations. Now, we've gotten some information from some of a couple of our government insiders who's talking about that there's been a food rations program devised or has been established, a protocol. 6 or 7 years ago, you talked about the white trains for food distribution. We're hearing that food rationing is something that could come. I don't know why, if it's maybe chemical weapons could pollute the earth or could mess with the fields, causing a shortage of foods. I'm not sure what causes this. I mean, there's a lot of changes in the weather, heat, a lot of things you've explained. But can you help us understand? I mean, I was talking with Chance Gibson earlier tonight on the show before you came on. Of course, he has a company called simplycleanfoods.net that sells, dried foods that can last a long time. And he's kind of thinking, and I'm thinking it too, that maybe people should build up a little bit of supplemental long-term food.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about this food rationing possible program and why it could happen?
Yeah, and because some of the audience thinks that is never possible. That did happen back in the 20s. Just in case nobody, they're too young to remember, we've gone through something similar to this before, where people actually we had food rationing and punch cards to go get your milk and your sugar, right? That's when they didn't even have refrigerators.
My grandmother used to talk about that.
Yep. So food rationing is something that has happened from time to time, and it will no doubt happen again. Why? Well, back then, you're looking at a combination of the Dust Bowl. You're looking at a combination of fears about financial markets, some bad dealings that took place. And they did not have the mechanisms in place to stop people from taking all their money out the banks, this, that, and the other. And essentially everything just went haywire and collapsed. It took a while to get everything back on track again. In this day and age, right, we've had 1/4 of our crops have been destroyed. The number's actually larger than that. That's why the government was buying up a bunch of crops so they can actually make their crops resilient to radiation. Why? Because we've had a steady rise in radiation.
Yes.
Right? Over time. Now, back in 2010, when people talked about a rise in radiation, they were thinking it was going to rise overnight. No. But it's been rising ever since. I'd say healthy, steadily around 2005. It's been rising. We're in 2026, right? This is 20 years later, essentially. And radiation is up there. That has altered corn crops. That has altered most of the crops, right? In your grocery stores, when you go look at meats, you might want to read the labels because some of those labels will say artificial meat. And the other labels say bioengineered meat. No. So people have been eating grown meat. By law, they do not have to disclose the process. I'm telling you, they're growing meat in labs. They're growing steaks in a lab. They're growing body parts of cows and everything else in labs. And they're
Oh,
selling it in the stores, and people are gobbling it up. All right.
oh,
But you're talking about, I'm not, listen, I'll be honest with you. If somebody grew some meat, that doesn't concern me. What concerns me is they cannot replicate the perfection that God put in place where animals grow. Right?
well, of course.
God has a perfect system here on this earth. There's no way they can replicate that perfect system. They're going to be missing some things, right? So when you eat that meat, it's not going to have everything in it, or it may have too many things in it. All right. But that's being sold. Some of the lettuce, some of the cabbage is not lettuce and cabbage. When have you known cabbage? If you submerge cabbage in cold water and leave it there overnight, it dissolves into a thick putty. The
What?
cabbage does not do that.
No.
Does it? All right,
No.
it does not. When have you known fish, meat, right? Some fillets. When has it been that you can take a fish fillet, crumple it up in your hands, set it back down, and it goes right back out to the way it was in less than about 15 to 20 minutes? So there's a certain amount of plastic that's allowed to be in food, right? Microplastics is a real problem. So there's a certain amount of plastics that can be in food. They're also allowing certain polymers to exist in foods, which is giving it resiliency. They have artificial fish, artificial, all types of things that are artificial now. You really have to read the labels, but even that's failing. The health implications from these things, they already know the timeline involved, right? So you're looking at a ticking time bomb. It's stopping the reproductive system of a human being is being affected by all these changes. And that means there are going to be less children born, right? That's happening already. I can tell you right now, they're lying with the census. Those numbers are not real with the census. The numbers are not real with death and with birth. Those numbers are not real. We're just way too trusting of data. And so we have a problem, right? We're going to get to the point where we're not going to see a lot of children around. Then we'll get to the point where no children will be around. None, zero, absolutely none. This is the world we live in because of the food, right? Certain crops have been utterly destroyed in America. Crops have been destroyed in other nations without war, without, all the other mechanisms.
Destroyed by greed?
Crops.
Is it greed?
Is it what?
Is it greed that's caused the destruction?
Greed?
Greed.
No.
Or radiation?
Nope. It's a combination of things, but for the most part, it's the sun.
Here we go. Radiation, solar flare.
The GMO foods first came out to make them radiation resilient.
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
That's what Monsanto's was doing. They were making wheat last through high radiation periods. Right? And so now when you buy bread, a lot of people have probably noticed if you toast bread, you'll have these long brown streaks in the bread, in white bread. It doesn't taste the same. It does not. It's just not the same. You can still buy some natural bread, like Wonder still makes real bread in certain products, and Heiner's, they still make real breads. The rest of them, I believe, they fold it. But the wheat is GMO wheat everywhere. Yeah. GMO soybeans everywhere, right? And yep. Some of the wheat bread is not based with wheat. It's based with something else, a synthetic particulate or particle, because those crops have died. These storms have taken away a lot of the crops, Pastor. The weather that nobody seems to be, too interested in has destroyed a lot of animals and crops. And so most of the insects in South America are moving to North America. Some of the more venomous creatures, some of the parasites, many of the parasites are moving to the northern hemisphere, right, which will destroy more crops. Entire forests have been eaten away. The trees are gone. So crops have failed worldwide, and they need an alternative solution. Also, there's been the disappearance of a lot of wheat transport vehicles. So imagine a convoy or a train, right, carrying wheat, and they're tracking this train past Paul, and all of a sudden, it does not get to the destination you thought it would get to, but went through some diversion track or some under mountain highway, and it never comes down. So I believe if we face any problems in the future, right, say if they know of an object that will slam into the Earth's surface in the next year and a half, then they're going to start stockpiling fresh foods in certain areas. They're not going to have it sold on the shelves, right?
Stockpiling.
Right. You remember when all those cargo containers were stuck out to sea?
Yes.
Why did all of the containers containing wheat, why were they taken from among all those containers?
I don't know.
Why? Somebody took them, all of them.
Are they stored somewhere else?
Well, there you go. And there was no accountability of that merchandise. That was on the sea. It was a write-off. Much of it was a write-off, but all the wheat containers were gone. Gone. So, if something were to happen in the future, if it were real, then they're going to stockpile the places they need to be. They know they have to operate in certain places. You're going to be missing foods up top. So we have those, things that are disrupting crop growth. Animals are really taking a hit. I'd say this year, near the end of this year, people really have to watch after their pets. Hope folks are going to listen to what I'm about to say. Watch after the health of your pets. There are too many parasites that have been released, that have gotten loose, right? They deeply affect animals. And there will be a type of pet crisis, I guess you could say, where these parasites have gotten hold of lots of pets. So watch after the health of your pets. People are going to have to watch what they feed their pets. People are going to have to watch the water intake of their pets. They're going to have to watch it because there are too many compromised things out there. And nobody's going to really, if nobody sounds anything, they're not really going to think about the animals, right? But in the wild, animals are suffering right now. Disease is starting to take over animals in the wild. A lot of deer are going to start dropping like flies, right? This is going to alter the food chain. This is causing things like bears. In fact, there's still a warning about bears in many different nations. The mindset of animals is starting to change. They're becoming hostile. They cannot find their regular foods. They're coming around human beings, and they're quite aggressive. Right here, yesterday, another grizzly had to be put down that was walking around in a neighborhood. This is happening once a month, it seems, and that number's increasing, right? These cougars and things like that are attacking people in neighborhoods, and they do not have rabies. That's unheard of.
Because they're hungry.
They're hungry, right?
Yep.
So you got to watch. People have to watch for that. There are new types of fungi. Disease is moving all over the planet, seemingly setting up, and while it's spreading, they're just not. People are not well informed. They're not going to be informed until human life is deeply affected by this. And when I say human life, I don't mean Middle Eastern human life. Because there are certain people, if they all died out, nobody would say a thing. But when it comes to America, when it hits places like the UK and Australia and Europe, then you have a problem. People will start to pay attention, but by that time, Pastor Paul, it will have compromised a lot. So people have to really be responsible. They can't be trusting of these facilities and mankind, right? A person will go buy bottled water with absolute assurance that nothing is wrong with that water simply because it's in a bottle. See, that's how we trust mankind. We say we don't trust man, but yes, we do, because we don't inspect the labels. There's people, the average person, do they have testers at home where they can test, contaminants in the water? They should have one. Everybody should have one. They're cheap. Everybody can have one of those. Because a lot of this bottled water, Pastor Paul, is tap water.
Yeah, it's not even.
It's tap water.
It's just
and
tough.
it's nasty, right? And they just strip the flavor stripped out of it. Some of the water, the sewage, water, sewage, and treatment plants, right? They have new. Well, let's just say that their standards are not as high as it should be, right? So that recycled water, people are taking showers in, this, that, and the other. They really have to start being responsible. They can't be lazy during this time. They have to do things for themselves. But there are many things out there right now that people are just overlooking. And those are the areas that normally get us. And it's really taken, our crops have taken a hit. Food has taken a hit. Pastor Paul, food is not as plentiful as the average person would think. And too many cows have medical problems right now. Ranchers and farmers out there, they're putting in forms to help with the health of their animals. Certain feeds have been compromised. There are so many ranchers out there that say, do not give your animals this type feed, right? Because your animals will not reproduce if they eat this. Chickens will not lay eggs if they eat this. That's like a science experiment gone amok. But that's competition. People, when they get greedy, they make things cheap. They don't care what happens to the animal. They care about their, bottom line income. And so they're making things with a much lower standard, with more contaminants that are prone to molds and all sorts of things. They don't care what the repercussions are, right?
And this is why we have more sickness, disease, cancer, heart conditions, everything you could think of. Not only the animals, but the human beings as well.
Yes.
Because of all this. So, it's greed. It's man not caring. People have lost love. The Bible says because iniquity abounds, the love of many will wax cold. We're in that time. We truly are. Mike, wow. Tonight you really answered some serious questions here. The alien hybrid question, the CERN, I call it the CERN apocalypse, but certainly these new technologies and advancements that are all tied together. And then, guys, the white trains are coming. I don't know when they're coming, but they're coming soon because the world is teetering on a lack of food that's edible. And that's what I'm hearing you say, Mike.
Yeah.
A lack of edible food. It's coming. Mike, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing with us this information. And it's from the Bible. And we are living in these days that the Bible said would come. And we need to be prepared. Before the Lord returns, we've got some responsibility to each other and to our families. And so,
Amen.
Thank you, Mike, so much. Appreciate it.
Pastor Paul, you're quite welcome. It's always an honor.
The honor's mine. I tell you that for sure. God bless you.
Okay. God bless.